In the middle of the buzzing, bouncing, beatboxing town of Sprunkiopolis, where every Sprunky marched to their own rhythm and no idea was too wild, stood the gleaming chrome structure known as Cassie's Lab. It was a tower of blinking lights, swirling wires, and way too many do not press buttons. Inside the lab, the one and only Casey, mad genius, chaos lover, and certified Sprunky, was adjusting a wrench the size of his own head while muttering, "A little more voltage here, maybe a sprinkle of musical synergy there, oh, and a dash of emotional instability." Today was a big day. He was about to unveil his greatest creation yet, the Friend Fusion 5000. "Ladies and gentle Sprunks," he bellowed to no one but a camera on a tripod, "prepare yourselves for the future of cooperation, unity, and robotic awesome sauce. We are about to fuse not just personalities, but destinies." He hit a button, trumpet sounds blared from overhead speakers, confetti burst from the ceiling, a cake launched sideways for no reason and splattered against the wall. Casey was thrilled. Now all he needed were two Sprunkies to fuse. Hugh, Orrin, and Thysto. Orrin bounced into the lab with a triple scoop ice cream cone, dripping chocolate all over the floor. He was humming a beat, eyes half-lidded, hoodie sleeves too long, pure chaos in slow motion. "Casey Rowe, you got to try this mint choco banana swirl with rainbow rice crackers," he said, holding the cone out. "It's like brain freeze, but with happiness." Behind him stormed in Thysta, slick, sharp, serious. His eyes scanned the mess with visible horror. He wore gloves not for fashion, but for sanitation. "You brought ice cream into a lab?" Thysto hissed. "Are you trying to trigger a molecular dairy reaction?" "Oh, chillax, Frosto," Orrin grinned. "It's just a vibe snack. It's a melting hazard." They were fire and ice, bass and snare, chaos and precision, and they had been bickering about everything for weeks, which made them, of course, the perfect test subjects. "Excellence!" Cassie clapped his hands. "You two are about to become legends." Orrin blinked. "Huh?" Thysto narrowed his eyes. "Defined legends." With one dramatic yank of a lever, Cassie activated the machine. Robotic arms shot out, grabbing both Sprunkus by the hoodie and jacket and sucking them into the fusion chamber before either could protest. There was a buzz, a boom, a fart noise, and then silence, followed by a metal hand punching through the fusion pod's lid. And rising from the swirling mist came Orrin Thestobot. The robot was huge. One side glowed soft neon blue with a lazy half smile and a beat-dropping shoulder that pulsed to its own rhythm. The other side was sleek and polished steel with glowing red eyes that blinked in analytical sequence. Cassie's eyes sparkled. Yes, they have fused. This is peak Sprunky science." The robot looked down at its hands. Both voices spoke at once. "Whoa, am I tall?" Orrin's voice said. "This is unacceptable," Taisto's voice added. "I have no memory of consenting to bionic integration." Then the robot stepped forward. One foot grooved like it was dancing. The other stomped like it was inspecting a factory floor. The imbalance was intense. "Okay," Classy clapped. "Let's test the functionality. Try making a beat." The robot raised a hand and fired a blast of ice cream from its fingertips directly into the ceiling fan. It began raining vanilla choco goo. "Oopsie," said Orrin's half of the voice. "Malfunction detected," said Taisto's. And thus began the wildest day Sprunkiopolis had ever seen. The Orrin Thestobot clunked out of Cassie's lab, its uneven footsteps echoing through the streets of Sprunkiopolis. Onlookers froze as the towering fusion robot approached, half bopping to a beat, half scanning the environment like a security drone. A tiny Sprunky kid gasped, "Is that Orrin?" The robot's left eye blinked sleepily. What's up, little vibe meester?" Orrin's voice chimed. The right eye narrowed. "Please maintain a safe distance of exactly 3.2 feet, Thisto's voice snapped. The robot immediately bent down to pet a stray cat, then stood up so fast the poor feline flew into a bush. It tried to bow politely to a street vendor while simultaneously reaching for their ice cream cart, causing 3 scoops to launch into the sky and splat across a billboard advertising mint chip mousse. Casey, watching via drone, giggled. "So unstable, so unpredictable. I love it." Inside the robot's core, Orrin and Thisto were becoming aware of each other, trapped in a digital control room with two pilot seats side by side. The screens showed everything the robot was seeing, doing, and ruining. "Why are your size arms always reaching for ice cream?" Thisto growled. "Why is your side scanning trash cans for structural inconsistencies?" Orrin countered. They reached for the same control lever and jammed it at the same time. Outside, the robot spun in place, moonwalked backward, then tripped and collapsed into a fruit stand with dramatic flair. "Oh, oh," Orrin shouted from inside. "We don't have nerves in here," Thisto replied. The robot sat up, dazed. Onlookers applauded, assuming it was part of a spontaneous musical theater performance. Suddenly, a loud buzz came from above. A glitchy siren blared across town. "Warning, unstable robot signal detected." Sprinkiopolis had been through enough musical meltdowns in the past to know what came next. The citizens scattered, sirens flared. Mayor Boomy tried to call for backup, but dropped his megaphone into a vat of bubble tea. The Ornithostobot stood slowly, lights flickering. Orrin tried to wave apologetically. "My bed." Thisto slammed the override. "Shut up, we're a public safety risk." The robot hobble speed ran down Main Beat Street, knocking over signs, spinning in circles, and accidentally launching two pigeons skyward in a tornado of beatboxing sound waves. At the lab, Cassie leaned back in his hover chair, sipping tea. "Absolutely textbook. Now we just need the emotional collapse, the inner monologue meltdown, and then, boom, fusion breakthrough." Inside the control room, it was anything but peaceful. "I can't function with your vibes all over the place," Thisto snapped. "And I can't function with you trying to structure joy like a spreadsheet," Orrin fired back. "What's wrong with wanting order? What's wrong with a little chaos?" They glared at each other. Then everything went dark. The robot stood still in the middle of the plaza. For a moment, it looked peaceful. Then, BZZT, its limbs flailed. It kicked over a juice stand, spun into a jazz dance move, and accidentally vaporized a trash bin with a laser beam from its eye. The crowd gasped. A Sprunki grandma fainted. "Orrin bot is out of control," someone shouted. "No, it's Thisto bot," shouted another. Mayor Boomy's voice cracked through a loudspeaker. "Cassie, fix this now or you're banned from science." But Kansi just leaned back farther in his chair, smiling wider than ever. "They're close," he whispered. "So close." Inside the Ornithostobot's core, the control room blinked red. Sirens flashed. Systems pulsed with instability. Orrin mashed buttons randomly, his hoodie falling over his eyes. Thisto snapped at him, trying to pry his hands off the levers with a sanitized tissue. "This is a disaster," Thisto muttered. "We're going to explode. Implode. Both." Orrin leaned back in his seat and blew a raspberry. "Bruh." "He'd like allergic to fun." "I'm allergic to nonsense." "Well, that explains everything." Before Thisto could reply, a new alert popped on the main screen. "Fusion failure imminent. Initiating emotional harmony protect." The control room faded. Suddenly, they were sitting in a small, softly lit space. No buttons, no controls, just pillows, warm colors, and a sign on the wall that read, "Welcome to the inner vibe chamber. Talk it out or blow up." "What the glitch is this?" Orrin mumbled. Thisto looked horrified. Is that a beanbag chair?" A hologram of Cassie flickered into existence between them, holding a smoothie. "Hey, boys, this is the harmony room. You don't get out till you learn to understand each other. So, talk about your feelings. Or don't, but just know, if you don't, you explode. Okay, bye." The hologram vanished. Orrin sat back. "So, want to cry and hug or something?" "I'd rather short circuit." Silence hung between them like cold soup. Finally, Orrin crossed his arms. "You really think I'm dumb, don't you?" Thisto blinked. "I didn't say that. But you always roll your eyes when I talk, like you're mentally correcting me." "That's because I usually am mentally correcting you." "See," Orrin threw his arms up. "You think just because I don't use fancy words or freak out about smudges that I don't care?" Thisto hesitated. "You care?" "Dude, I care too much. That's why I make jokes. Why chill? If I didn't laugh, I'd melt." Thisto lowered his eyes. "I never knew that." Orrin nodded slowly. "Yeah, well, you're not exactly an open book either. Calculator brain?" Thisto sighed, rubbing his temple. "You want to know the truth?" he muttered. I envy you. Oren tilted his head. Come again? You, you don't plan anything. You live like every moment's a beat drop. I'm always calculating the worst case scenario. And still, I mess up. You spill ice cream on yourself and people think it's a dance move. Oren blinked, then snorted. Dang, man, that was the nicest roast I've ever received. Disto almost smiled. Almost. Then they both looked up as the room around them changed. The lights dimmed, a soft melody played in the background, a remix of Oren's freestyle flow and Thisto's precise rhythm. The walls shimmered with holograms of their best moments together, dancing on rooftops, making weird snacks, surviving Casey's last failed experiment that turned everyone into pasta for 6 hours. They looked at each other. I guess we're kind of awesome together, Oren said. Thisto gave a slow nod. Chaotically compatible, the rune flashed. Emotional sync, complete. Back in the real world, the Oren Thistobot stood frozen in the plaza, its internal systems humming softly. The crowd held their breath. Kashi peeked out from behind a bush where he'd been hiding with popcorn. Then, with a subtle whir, the robot's body began to transform. The awkward mishmash split and rotated, pieces aligning, colors blending, and sound waves syncing. What emerged was a sleek, unified machine, Orinthosobot V2, polished, rhythmic, glowing with energy that was no longer clashing, but in perfect harmony. It looked down at the stunned crowd and did a smooth shoulder roll into a moonwalk. Then it struck a beatbox pose and dropped the most electrifying, rhythm-perfect, freestyle meets symphonic beat Sprunkiopolis had ever heard. The plaza exploded with cheers. Cassie popped out of the bush, eyes twinkling. They did it! Emotional maturity and mechanical stability. That's got to be a first. The mayor fainted from joy. Sprunkies danced. Even the pigeons returned. The party in the plaza was just winding down when the sky started dripping. At first, it was just a drop, then another, then a glob of something cold, sticky, and suspiciously minty. Sprunkus tilted their heads skyward as a greenish cloud loomed overhead, spinning slowly, eerily, almost like, wait, Thisto's voice echoed from inside the bot. Is that melting ice cream cloud? Oren shrieked. Cassie's eyes went wide. Oh no, not again. Again, shouted half the town in unison. Yes. Okay, long story, but last month I may have accidentally launched an experimental weather drone that converts emotional energy into dessert-based precipitation, Cassie stammered. It wasn't supposed to reach the atmosphere. The cloud rumbled. Then, boom! A downpour of chocolate syrup, rainbow sprinkles, and waffle cone chunks began falling like sweet meteorites. Sprunkies screamed and ran for cover. Several vendors tried to catch toppings in open mouths. A street performer began playing the violin in slow motion. Chaos. Mayor Boomy yelled through a megaphone full of whipped cream. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is a disaster. Inside the Oren Thistobot, Oren was bouncing with excitement. Dude, we are literally the only thing that can stop this. Thisto was already scanning. Cloud altitude, 2,000 feet, density, high sugar content, meltdown in T-minus 3 minutes. Oren grabbed the controls. Let's launch, baby. Thisto paused. Together? Oren grinned. Fusion still. The robot crouched, engines revving, shoulder vents steaming, with a unified countdown. 3, 2, 1. Kaboom, ka-chow! It blasted into the sky like a rocket-powered disco ball. As they soared through the syrupy rain, Thisto redirected power to the stabilization thrusters. Oren launched bubblegum shield mode. The robot spun, flipped, and dodged cherry bombs as it climbed higher. At the center of the cloud sat Cassie's deranged drone, the Frostbite 9000, now mutated with emotional feedback and spewing lemon sorbet lightning. Deploying feel-good missile, Thisto barked. Boyd the freestyle distraction sequence, Oren shouted. The bot launched a dazzling sequence of dance moves and soundwave blasts, enough to confuse even the Frostbite sugar circuits. Thisto located the central core. We need to overcharge it with synchronized joy, he said. Oren cracked his knuckles. Time to do what we do best. The robot began to move in a pattern, beat by beat, rhythm by rhythm, a mix of Oren's laid-back bounce and Thaisto's sharp timing. They harmonized, flowed, created a beat so pure, so united, so sprunky, it shimmered through the air in visible waves of light and music. The frostbite froze mid-charge. It trembled, it hiccuped. Then, bloop. It turned into a soft-serve ice cream sculpture of a smiling robot and dropped harmlessly into a vat of caramel clouds. The storm ended. The sky cleared, and all of Sprunkiopolis looked up to see Oren Thistobot doing the victory dance of champions, featuring jazz hands, moonwalk, and one glorious head spin. Back on the ground, the crowd roared. Kasi shed a single dramatic tear. They grew up, so chaotically balanced. The mayor handed them a medal made entirely of frozen yogurt. And somewhere in the back of the crowd, a small Sprunky kid whispered, "I want to fuse with someone someday." The Oren Thistobot landed gently, beat still pulsing, lights softly blinking. As the fusion chamber opened, Oren and Thista stepped out, a little sticky, a little tired, and smiling. "Nice work, Ice Cream Brain," Thisto said, smirking. "You too, Rule Robot," Oren replied. And just like that, they fist bumped. No sparks, no drama, just a quiet clap of mutual respect. Let me know when you're ready for the final part 5, where the story wraps up with a cozy ending. Oren and Thisto reflect on their fusion, and Cassie already starts building a new machine that threatens to undo it all, of course. Shall we finish strong? Let's bring it home. Here's part 5, the heartfelt, funny, and oh-so-sprunky ending to Cassie fuses 2 Sprunkies into a robot, Orenbot and Thistobot, wrapping the chaos, friendship, and ice cream into a satisfying final scoop. The sun dipped low over Sprunkiopolis, casting golden light across the caramel-stained plaza. Sprunkies were dancing, licking sprinkles off their jackets and retelling the story of the Oren Thistobot like it had already become legend. Cassie stood on top of a melted hot fudge stand, megaphone in hand, addressing the crowd like he was receiving an award no one offered him. "I present to you the first ever emotionally stable, fused Sprunky mech unit, designed by moi, calibrated by fate, and powered by snack-based empathy." Below, Oren and Thisto sat side by side on a bench, both wrapped in foil space blankets and munching on cones of actual, non-weaponized ice cream. Oren licked his scoop. "Dude, that was actually kind of epic." Thisto nodded. "Agreed, and extremely inefficient. Yeah, but in a cool way." They sat in silence for a second. Then Oren said, "I thought you hated me, you know?" Thisto blinked. "I thought you never took anything seriously." "I don't," Oren shrugged, "but I take people seriously, especially annoying ones I weirdly care about." Thisto smirked. "Well, now that we've saved the town from an emotionally triggered dessert drone, I suppose I care too." "You just admitted you care? Don't make me regret it." They both laughed, loud and real, not out of tension, not out of awkwardness, just pure relief. Then a tiny mechanical bird flew overhead and dropped a scroll into Oren's lap. He unrolled it, blinked. Dude?" Thisto looked over his shoulder. The scroll read, "Project Fusion 2 coming soon. Triple bonding mode, Feet Poppy." Signed, Miss Sake. They looked up. On the rooftop of his lab, Cassie was already laughing maniacally, holding blueprints and an uncomfortably large cannon labeled Friendship Blaster X. Oren choked on his ice cream. "Oh, no, not again." Thisto stood. "We're shutting that down immediately." Oren leaned back with a grin. "Let's give it one more round. We've been fused, we've saved a city, and we didn't explode. What's the worst that could happen?" Thisto raised an eyebrow. "You really want me to answer that?" "Nope." As they walked off toward Cassie's lab, bickering already starting again, a gentle breeze swept through the plaza, carrying laughter, the scent of vanilla, and a strange mix of rhythm and code. Because in Sprunkiopolis, fusion wasn't about being the same. It was about learning to groove with someone different. And if you could do that, well, you could save the world, or at the very least, survive. Cassie